I'm Lisa Federico, and this is Inside Northwest Columbus. After spending decades in corporate marketing, I traded boardrooms for backyards because the best stories are happening right here at home. Every week, you'll meet entrepreneurs, creatives, and everyday neighbors doing extraordinary things across Worthington and Northwest Columbus. So let's jump into this week's conversation. Welcome to this episode of Inside Northwest Columbus. I am so excited to have Jessica Brugger of Dwellwell Design Company here with me today. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hey, Lisa.
I'm really excited to have you on. Congratulations on yet another successful issue of Design Alchemy.
Thank you.
You've been doing that now for three
This
years,
is the third, yes.
Yeah, I love it. And
It's
I
so
look
fun.
forward to it every single year. So
Thanks.
thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
I want to talk all about Design Alchemy, but first, I want to talk a little bit more about you and your background.
Sure.
You have built your business on the idea that homes should feel very personal, as opposed to maybe Instagram perfect, which I think all of us fall into that trap.
Yes.
So what led you to that perspective?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One, I grew up in a home that was not Instagram perfect. Also, we don't need to talk about age, but there was no Instagram then. But I think just growing up, I didn't grow up in a home that was precious, and I don't believe in a precious home. I don't believe in a white room that nobody can go in other than at the holidays. I think we live in our homes, and I think you love your home and have sort of the ultimate family experience, relaxation.
Yeah.
The world is so busy. When you come home and you're like, it feels like me. Selfishly, I think also it's just way more interesting to build homes for people that are different, that are unique, that we're looking at things a little differently. And you've got some fun stuff in there that not everyone has. So definitely growing up, my mom had my parents both had a really clear point of view, and it didn't have too much to do with what was happening sort of trend-wise or in the ether. And then as I did renovations and did quite a few houses, in my first renovation, I recall getting to a point and I was sort of like, it's pretty, but I don't know that this feels like me.
Right.
So I sort of had to halt myself and recheck and make some changes. And so it's really grown from a host of things.
It's funny. When I grew up, my aunt and uncle had a home, and it was a very large home, 3 stories, right? Not including the basement.
Oh.
But they had rooms where you weren't allowed to walk in them because your footprints would get on the carpet.
Right.
And then, of course, they had plastic on the furniture.
I can't.
And as a little kid, I was even like, wow, why would you furnish a room that you never use?
Right.
And I think maybe people felt like, I've invested all this money in stuff, so I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
But gosh, what a waste of time and a waste of space.
Yeah, I think there's such a balance in that too. What I don't want to ever give anyone the impression of is there's disposable furniture in the world. And one of the big things that I talk with my clients about a lot is value. And value for me is the intersection of we want good construction. We want something that's going to last 20 years, but we do not need to be in luxury to be doing that. We want like a really great high mid ground, right? Like the upper middle class kind of a ground of furniture. You need to take care of it still. There's nothing that's indestructible, but I'm going to get you things that are going to last and be great to live on. That's what's important.
Yeah, I totally hear you with that. Was there a moment where maybe you realized that the perfect design was not actually serving people?
Yeah, I think probably as I was doing those renovations, and I was looking at designers way back when, 15, 20 years ago, and I was looking at their photos and portfolios, and I really admired what they were doing. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It said nothing to me. It just was like, well, that's a pretty space. I don't know who lives there. I don't know anything about them.
Right.
I really suspect they can't sit on that furniture with some popcorn. No movie night is happening there, you know?
Right.
Like, that's sort of the fun of what we're all doing in life. It's about being with other people. And if we're not building homes and living in homes where you can do that and feel really comfortable doing that, I'm not sure what that's worth.
Yeah, I also think that there are typically multiple people that live in a home.
Right.
And so it'll never look like what's in the picture.
Yes.
Because you're doing things in your home, like eating popcorn,
Yes.
movie nights, art, whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you throw kids and dogs and cats and birds and whatever else you have into the mix, right? It never looks like that.
No. And then you drive yourself insane trying to pick up and make it look like a showroom. When
Right.
it's like you shouldn't be living in a showroom to begin with.
Yeah.
Or the showroom you should be living in is your life. That's the
Right.
showroom. It should
And
feel
it
that
should
way.
be interesting.
Yeah, it should be
You know,
interesting.
it should reflect you. And we've all been in homes where it's just very sterile or
Yes.
very not what maybe you would envision
Yeah.
of the person that you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like you live in like a new build.
Right.
You know, like
right.
that stereotype of a new build. There's no casing. There's no trim. There's some big windows
Right.
that
No
don't have any
character.
mullions. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how important that is.
Yeah.
How would you describe your design philosophy today, maybe in the simplest terms?
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay, so the simplest terms are it's a balance of function and feeling. It's that intersection of this space has to work for you. So we talk a lot about the fun stuff, the furnishings, the wallpaper, the finishes. But
Right.
really what I'm doing starts so far before that. And I'm working with really amazing contractors to renovate homes. So they
Right.
work for your family and work for how you live and who you live with in a very functional way. So from a design philosophy standpoint, for me, it starts up in that sort of architecturally and build wise. How are we renovating? How are we changing what needs to be changed so that the function exists in a way that it should to live your life? And then how do we carry that all the way through your family's narrative so that it
Yeah.
feels like you in the end? It's the function, it's the feel.
I get it. Jessica, I don't think a lot of people understand what an interior designer does. I think they think it's a luxury.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between an interior designer and a remodeler or a construction company,
For sure.
right? Talk my listeners through the
Yeah.
difference.
It's so true. Okay, so interior design is, I feel like often when we think about it from a market standpoint, what we think about is some 80s or 90s TV show where they've got paint swatches and they're sort of fluttering them around. And in my head, it's always sort of this Stevie Nicks person with these cape-lit situations. So interior design as it stands now in the market, and certainly interior designers, there's all different kinds. The way that I run the business at Dwell Well is full-service interior design. And what that means is I'm working wildly upfront in a renovation. I'm working before a contractor is in there, before a builder is in there. I'm working with an architect sometimes, or oftentimes for me in remodeling, I'm the one that starts that process. And then we're saying, I'm working with my clients to say, what doesn't work in your space? What does work? So right now I'm working on a project where we're renovating a kitchen. But to renovate that kitchen, we've got to take down walls. We've got to look at what the foyer is. We're encapsulating and moving a bathroom. We're re-looking at this family room and removing stairs and moving them. So it's much more structurally based. But the advantage of working with a designer in this case is I've got a really refined few contractors, GCs, remodelers that I work with that I've fully vetted that know each other's processes really well. So we really hum along well. So I'm designing not only the spaces, but the furniture and the finishes. So I said, like the designer with the paint swatches, that's me too. But I'm
Right.
also walls. I'm also electric plans. I'm also HVAC and plumbing. And then I bring in those specialists to say, hey, run this through, make sure that this is everything checks out for this home in this way. I'm bringing in an architect before we're removing any walls and saying, here's our layout, here's our plan, check me here, and let's get these drawings now to the city for approval and those things. So I'm really the hub to bring in all of
Right.
those people, and then I'm carrying through with my construction teams and checking in to make sure that what we designed and how we designed it is what's being executed through the whole thing. I wrap up at the end of the project with furniture that we've laid out in all of those CAD models in 2D. So we're designing spaces with not just the function of them in mind, but down to the finishes there and how Where's the furniture going to go? How big is that piece of furniture? What's the upholstery on the furniture? It's all in one process.
Yeah.
And I'm really sort of the spoke of the wheel to say, hey, let's pull an HVAC, GC, those sorts of things, architect, where all of that lives. So at the end of the day, what my clients are walking away with is a home that feels like it's existed that way forever and feels like it's truly lived in.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so much more than just picking out colors and furniture and paint and
much more.
yeah.
And for me, that's the fun of it. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
as excited about it if I didn't get to get in there in the nitty gritty with the build of it, with the contractors, with my clients, and really getting to know them, which I chuckle a little bit sometimes. I get some commentary around. We talked to a few different designers, and you were really different because you were asking us questions about our kids or who lived here with us early in the days, and now those kids have flown the nest, and how we live now. And you know, what are our hobbies? I want to know those things so that when I truly say I'm building this house for you and it's your narrative, that's where all of that comes
Right.
from. It makes it really fun.
Yeah. And then you can showcase the character of not only the home, but then the people who live in it.
Right.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Nobody wants my character in their home. Goodness knows what that might look like. Might be fun.
What got you into this? How did you get into interior design? Tell me the path.
It was a long and winding road. So I mentioned my parents did. My dad can build anything, and my mom is an artist, and my dad also has a real point of view. And so, for example, our home that I grew up in had a second floor, but it was completely unfinished. My dad built that second floor. So I grew up in a home where that was happening all the time, and I sort of thought everyone did. And so when I first had my first condo, I sort of gutted the condo, and that was my first renovation. So I renovated 5 homes, a few before my husband and I got married and a couple since we got married. And I just really enjoyed the process. And let's be frank, I learned a lot along the way.
Right.
So I have been in corporate marketing, account management, and strategy for about 15 years. And my kids got a smidge older, and I felt like I had some buffer time during COVID. I don't know what I was thinking, but whatever. It felt like that for a moment. So I went back and got to the New York Institute of Art and Design and did some education around interior design because I thought it would be fun to sort of dip my toe in just because I was interested. And then I realized that there was just a real market for what I felt like my point of view was and what I had to say. And so through numerous things, eventually decided to leave my corporate career and really make Dwellwell my full-time focus and bring that bridge from practicality and how you live to the final styling layering and helping to manage that renovation and GC experience. Was really felt like where I could really lend something different.
Yeah.
So it was a long and winding road. I bring all of that sort of strategy, marketing, creating a narrative gives me a really different foundational point of view to it. But when we say I've been sort of building and creating things forever, that's really the real.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I think too that when you start a business, it helps to have worked in a business, right?
For sure.
So that you have that 360 view of how processes maybe should work or more importantly should not work.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
I'm a big believer in really clear, proactive communication, really honest conversations, and processes.
Yeah.
The creative doesn't happen well if we ignore the fact that there's a giant project involved in this, and the ability to manage that project is often the downfall if it doesn't go well, right? So I really wanted to help to protect that. And things will always happen in a renovation.
Right.
So having the experts there to really help you through that is really important.
Yeah. Hey, quick break. May is our women's issue, and it's one of the most meaningful months of the year for us. We are featuring women in our community who are doing incredible things, leading businesses, raising families, building networks, and creating impact in ways that matter. On the podcast, we go beyond the surface to talk about the real journeys behind that success, the decisions, the challenges, the support systems that make it all possible. If those are the kinds of stories that resonate with you, make sure you're subscribed. You can dive into the full women's issue through the link in the show notes below. And so you've now done Design Alchemy.
Yep.
3 years in a row.
That's right.
2026 is out. It is beautiful, by the way. Tell me a little bit about the thought process behind Design Alchemy. And then I want to talk about some of these pillars that you mentioned.
Excellent. Good. So Design Alchemy was created out of this place of wanting to make sure that I was really clear and, again, proactive in sharing what my point of view of design was. What does that look like? What does that feel like? How do we think about it? And how can I can certainly bring it to your home, but maybe that's not what you're looking for. How can you bring it to your home? I think design is, as we just touched on, can be mistaken and can be really intimidating for people. And I wanted design to be approachable, and I wanted it to feel not like something that exists in New York or LA or Paris, but not here in the Midwest. We do design and we do it really well. And I wanted to be forward looking without being outlandish and really make it approachable for people. So that's the genesis of Design Alchemy. And I wanted to share my point of view about design, what it is and what it could be.
And the publication is free.
Free. Absolutely a free
people
download.
People can download it from your website.
That's
and
right.
We will put all of that, of course, in the show notes. You talk a lot about performative design in Design Alchemy. What is that?
Performative design is designing for Instagram. That's exactly what it is. It's the spaces that don't feel maybe like anything, or they don't have anything to do with the people that live there. It may be beautiful, but it's not, it's got no gravity. It's got no interest. There's no visible tension to the whole thing. And that's really where I get excited and really lean in, is how do we challenge a little bit what's been done everywhere and really make sure that we're bringing, again, the people into it. So it's not performative. It's lived in. The pictures on my website are stunning. And to be honest, of course, there's not Legos all over the kitchen island like there may be at my house.
Right.
We've swept the Legos off of the kitchen island before we take those pictures. But there could be. They easily can be. And you can see the places where we've built these homes to be lived in. It's not performative. It's beautiful, but it's sustainable and livable at the same time.
And I love how you get into these 3 pillars that you talk about. The one is the collected narrative.
Yeah.
There are people who collect a lot of things,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and we've talked about this too. How do you create the collected narrative without you designing a room that's like wall-to-wall dolls or something like that, right? We've
It's
all
not a
seen
collection.
that. Yeah.
Collections terrify me.
Yeah.
So the collected narrative is such a focus on bringing in the pieces and the interesting things that mean something, but really, I mentioned the tension, really balancing that out. So let's talk about, for example, I have this 3.5 foot statue, stay with me, of Cyrano de Bergerac at my house.
Okay.
It's a really perfect
envisioning.
example, exactly right, of a collective narrative piece. It was at my grandparents' house. I don't really even know what Cyrano de Bergerac
He's the one with the big
did.
nose,
Huge
right?
nose, yes.
Yeah.
But when they passed away, they had lots of lovely things, and I wanted that. Because I remember being a kid and being like, what's with the dude with the giant nose? It was interesting.
Yeah.
So do I put Cyrano in a space that has a lot of other, like, tchotchkes or is overly traditional? No, because I'm really thoughtful about creating tension. So Cyrano is an interesting narrative piece in my home that has quite a story. But what I'm going to make sure that I do is really have some clean lines of furniture around Cyrano, so we're not feeling like we're in some very heavy, overly traditional space.
Right.
So the collected narrative is really about bringing those things in that are interesting, that are personal, and creating those visible layers in a home that make it interesting and lived in, but making sure that we balance that so it's not feeling like, no knock on your grandma, but many of us knew those folks that had like the collection of dolls or like the tchotchke figurines everywhere.
Or the magnets or the keychains or the spoons. Yeah.
Exactly. That's not what we're talking about in the collected narrative. It's sort of picking those pieces that are really impactful and mixing them in with some clean lines and some other things to create tension, visual interest.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because I think all of us have pieces of something
Yeah.
that we really love. Like, for example, I have a pair of my grandfather's shoes. Now, I don't know how to display those.
Yep.
I don't know how to like work that into a design, but it's really important to me.
Yes.
You know, or his hat, or I'm a huge Mr. Rogers fan. So I have a big portrait or painting of Mr. Rogers.
I love it.
And when I walk into that room with my stuff that I love,
Yeah.
right? Oh my God, it just feels so much better
Yes.
than a very curated room. You know, like my previous apartment was very curated. My house now is totally different.
Yes.
Because I've embraced a lot about what you've talked about in Design Alchemy.
Yeah. It makes it fun.
Soft structure, you mentioned, is about balance.
It is.
Help me understand what soft structure is.
Yes.
I'm not. I kind of have I have an idea of what that is, but for my listeners,
Totally.
Let's talk it out.
Let's talk about it. Soft structure is all about the balance between really making sure that foundational, we've got the structure and the layout right. So when I say that, I mean, how are we positioning the room? How is it oriented? Are we thinking about impactful sight lines in that room? But also, what are the spaces that we live? What are our walkways? Is it a sectional? So that's our structured part of this.
Mm-hmm.
We also are going to talk about things like baseboards, casings on doors and windows, maybe picture frame molding. So again, in the structure. So it's the balance between looking at those structural things, how the room functions and is millworked and laid out, and then what's the softness we're bringing to it. So what are our upholsteries on those pieces of furniture? How are we bringing in organic shapes? Often that's with plants or with sculpture or really tactile vase. And I say sculpture, and maybe we got some eye rolls, but go to Home Goods and get a vase that's got a real tactile clay quality. So you're getting then that softness with the structure, and that really gives you that layered, lived-in feeling that we're looking for right now in interiors.
Yeah. And I think this speaks to your experience because most people, right, who are designing maybe their own room don't think about things like walkways and structure and visual. Right. I mean, yeah, I love how you bring all that together. And what will people get from Design Alchemy? Like, who's it written for and what will people get out of it?
Yeah, I think it's written for anybody who loves design. And the amount of people that I chat with that say, oh my gosh, I want to be a designer, or I wanted to do that at some point. So that's exactly who it's for. And then I hope that what folks get out of it is a little bit of a different point of view around what their home can be to them and some really functional ways to get there. What can I do to create this feeling or this look? Or I'm totally open to you looking at Design Alchemy and saying, I do not like that. That's fine too. That helps lead you to what you do like. What don't you like about it? How does that not feel right for you? And then that'll help you sort of think through, okay, so what do you like? What do you want to do?
And for someone who feels like their home just does not reflect them whatsoever, oh my gosh, where do you start?
Yeah, I think pop culturally, there is a bit of chatter around the HGTV effect. And it is exactly that. I did everything that HGTV told me to do, and I got to the end of it, and I don't know who lives here because it doesn't feel like it's me. Yeah. So I think some really functional things that I would say is look at one of your main living spaces. So maybe a master bedroom, maybe your living room, and clear the surfaces. Take it away. Take the things on your walls, maybe take them down, and just live with it a little bit empty for a couple of weeks. Do a really solid sift through everything that you removed, and then separate what you really have great feelings about and love from the things that maybe just sat there because you thought it was a cool thing when you went shopping and then you didn't know what to do with it, and so you set it down. I find that is happening a lot. The other thing that I really want people to think about is the things that they have received from loved ones or have gotten handed down to them in their family. I truly believe that your family members would not want you to hang on to that if you don't love it. I want to challenge the sentimentality sometimes of what people have and say, you're feeling obligated to keep this, but it doesn't speak to you. It doesn't speak to how you live or who you are, and that's okay. Your family member would want you to move that to somebody who it does speak to and who will use it and love it. So I want to challenge that a little bit as a bit of it and say, edit your stuff and edit ruthlessly, and then bring back only what you love. Style one table to bring it back, and then mess the amount of times I mess with things and move them and then put them back and then move them again until I really like that grouping, and then that grouping's set, and then come in and do another one. Layer it and be okay with the fact that it's going to be a little uncomfortable for a couple of weeks, but be really intentional about what you bring back.
Yeah, and maybe, you bring up a really good point. Maybe it's not about, getting it all done at once.
Yes.
I think maybe sometimes we step back and say, ooh, I really don't like the way that this room looks. So I'm going to move the couch here and the chair here, and I'm going to put some tchotchkes here. And then all of a sudden it just feels like a mishmash because we try to do everything all at once.
That's right.
And so you're saying kind of layer the process.
Yes.
And go slow with it.
Yep.
And that's how you can bring in the character.
That's right.
Yeah. Didn't get the magazine at home? No problem. You can read it for free by signing up for our digital issues. Just head to the link in the show notes. And hey, if you're just listening to this episode, did you know that you can watch it too? Catch the full video on YouTube using the link below. And then if you could give listeners one guiding principle for creating a home that truly feels like it's theirs.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I want more than one.
You may have more than one.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. I think
take as many as you want.
What's not working for you in the function or the space of your home. And really examine that. Are you tripping over your furniture? Do you not have a pathway to get in? Do you have kids' stuff all over the floor? Let's solve for those things. If you have kids, there's an era of life for those of us that have kids where you just got kids' stuff all over the floor.
Right.
And that's how you live. Let's talk about what are some good-looking and functional storage solutions that maybe don't look so functional. It doesn't have to be the IKEA cubes of the world, right? So let's create some storage in that space so that you can sweep all the kid clutter into it at the end of the day and still walk away from that room and feel like settled and comfortable. So I think the two guiding things are pay attention to what's driving you nuts and think about how you can solve for that via furniture or layout. And then it's that styling layer. It's that last piece of what I do so often that is the part that really you take like this big sigh and go, oh, okay, I completely get it. And you and I talked a little bit before the show started about how my clients don't see any of these selections or layouts until they see all of it. And that's exactly the reason why.
Yeah.
So that the story, the narrative, the them that I am building in that visual, they get to see all together. And I can't expect you to be able to understand or see that if I show you one tiny piece of it. So that's styling. We do these big installs where all of the furniture in this home is coming in. The build has already been done, right? These folks have already lived through the renovation side of things. And then all the furniture comes in. And the lighting comes in, the finishes have happened, the painting has happened. And then I come in with their art. I'm adding art often. And they're styling items. And it's sort of this moment of like, oh, it all makes sense. I get it. This is my home. So the layers are what makes such a big piece of it.
Well, and I think that speaks to going slow, right? Because there are so many choices to make. And just because you look at a piece of wallpaper that's this big doesn't mean that you're going to be able to see how everything goes together.
Right.
There's so much more to that.
And it has to go together, right? It doesn't have to match.
Right.
That's the other thing that is a bit of a difference. But that's harder. It's harder to make things go together than if you say, I'm going to pull this color out of this wallpaper and then every accent in the room is that color. That feels very crunchy and a bit performative, right? You want it to go together and sort of flow in this storied way. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of work.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier in the show and actually maybe it was before the show, how you kind of have, I'll call it support staff. Like, for example,
Yeah.
you'll work with an architect,
Yeah.
you work with the GC, but you also work with organizers as well.
Yes.
And I think that can open up a whole new realm for people who are
Right.
dealing with kid clutter, pet clutter, whatever it is that you
Yes.
have.
Yes. So I think one of the things that becomes more and more important in these sorts of businesses is really understanding what my place is in the project, and then who is the specialist. So I am the hub or the overarching in these projects, but I rely on teams of folks to do what they do really well. They are specialists at what they do, and I am finding the best specialists at what they do to make my job easier and these projects as easy and as fantastic at the end as we start out with them being. So exactly to your point, it's the GCs and the contractors. I have this tile guy and a wallpaper woman that are like people in the world that I have somehow found that are the
Right.
best tiler and
Right.
wallpaper people, right? I'm going to them every time. I have a painter that I use on every project now. It's he, and I have one team of his that I'm like, I always want them, and they're fantastic. They're really exceptional. Home organization is one of that. I partner with Kelly at A Joyful Sort, and she is coming into my kitchen projects, and she is being that specialist at helping my clients edit and then categorize their items. She's handing me that kitchen inventory so that as I am building boxes, drawers, moving walls, I'm saying truly, everything in their kitchen is going to fit, and this is where it's going to fit, and we're down to that level of detail. And then her team is moving all of their things back into the kitchen. So for all of us who moved 10 years ago and threw some crap in a kitchen cabinet and said we'd
Yep.
come back to it, as I sit here, I'm like, but also me, we'll come back to it, and we never come back to it. That's not going to happen on my kitchens.
Yeah.
These folks are going to have aesthetically and functionally this amazingly well done kitchen, and we're going to move them back in correctly so that from the next day, once we're all out of their way, they're running.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's just done.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people, I think, question, where do I start? And hear me out. So I have a friend who's an architect. She has a practice in DC.
Yep.
And she says the East Coast is very architect forward. So when somebody is contemplating a design or redesign, remodel, they call the architect first.
Sure.
The architect then calls the designer, right? Or they have a designer and then a builder or construction folks, right?
Yeah.
In Central Ohio, right, it's a lot of what we call design build.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they ever get to work with a designer or if they just come with the plans. But in this model, right, you're starting with the interior designer and then you're bringing in an architect or is there a right way? Like what, where do I start? And can you kind of talk our listeners through, right? What do we do to get the best outcome possible?
Yeah. The best outcome possible is finding a team of partners that you really resonate with, believe in, and that you've sort of stress tested a little bit to say, are your processes something I'm comfortable with? Are you, and listen, that it's so personal. I'm in your home for months with you. I'm sort of in your business too much, right? So you want to make sure also you like the people that you're working with.
Right.
So don't ever discount that piece of things. For me, in renovations, it often is a designer. It's me that's coming in first because the people that I work with are specialists in what they do in life, and that's not this side of the world.
Yeah, and like
right?
if
So
you're
how do they know?
Right. Like if you're an architect and you have this beautiful design, but it's not really matching how this person lives or this family lives, I can see how you'd end up with a less than great result.
Yes. So I focus more on the renovation side of the world than the new build side.
Yeah.
In a new build, I think you're much more architect and designer are running as partners from the get-go for exactly the lanes of our architects are doing an amazing job at engineering the spaces and building the spaces. And then this designer comes in with them as their mid-process and saying, how do we live in those spaces? How are we arranging the furniture? How many people live here? And really taking that next layer, just like I talked about the home organization. They're taking that next layer for me in a kitchen design to say, I'm saying, here's all of the ways that you're going to live in this space and how we're going to account for what goes there. But then they're that next detail deeper to say, where's their KitchenAid go? They're really great bakers and they've got all of these baking pans. That's a bit exceptional maybe in this kitchen. So I need to make sure that I'm accounting for that differently. The architects are doing that with a layer of design. New builds tend to be a little more architecture driven. In my world, renovation world, I tend to be the one driving it and then bringing in that architecture partner that if we need a structural engineer kind of a partner because we're talking about foundational things, I'm going to say, hey, I think we're talking about foundational things. I'm going to bring in the right person to do that because that's not me and that's okay. But I'm overseeing then who are all of the people that we're bringing in to make sure that all makes sense and keeping everybody and giving everybody permission to really own their lane is such an important part of the partnership. None of my projects happen unless we're all in lockstep together and know what the objective is and know who the clients are. And I'm doing a great job communicating not only back to those clients, but to all of my trade partners to say, this is who they are, this is what's important, and we need to account for this differently for these folks. So,
Jessica, thank you so much for being here. I always learn so much when we talk.
Good. I mean, me too, maybe? I don't know.
Excited.
It's so fun to talk about it.
I know. And look, I'm a design buff as well. I love it. I'm not as great as you are at it, but I always learn so much. And I'm excited we have an event on June 25th.
Yes.
That will be Design Dilemmas at Ballard Design. So I'm excited to work with you on that. Tell us where we can get Design Alchemy and where we can learn a little bit more about you and how you serve your clients.
Oh my gosh, for sure. So go to dwellwelldesignco.com. The website has Design Alchemy as a free download. Would love to have you grab it, check it out. Would love to hear your thoughts on it. The website has a ton of my work on it. Articulates the process of working with Dwell Well and myself. And then I always say Instagram is really going to be your sort of up to date. I'm regularly in stories and sharing projects that are happening right now. I often look homeless and like I'm in the midst of a construction project because I am. So check it out. Lots of fun stuff happening and love bringing everyone with me.
Excellent. And we will put that in the show notes as well in case you miss it or you're driving. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We will see you next week on Inside Northwest Columbus.
Boxland Media. Think big.